So, I got something super cool for you today on the English Mastery podcast. Emily, you ready for this?
Oh, I'm always ready, Dennis. What do you got?
All right. So, we're diving into these mind-blowing English expressions that you probably hear all the time at work, right? But maybe you don't really know how to use them yourself.
Well, okay. So we're talking about those expressions that make native speakers sound so smooth and natural, like they just flow without even thinking about it.
Exactly. And the thing is, well, these aren't your grandma's idioms from some dusty textbook. These are the real deal. What people actually say in meetings, in Slack messages, in the hallway when you're grabbing coffee.
Right. And I love that you mentioned that because, I mean, honestly, how many times have learners studied all these formal expressions and then they get into a real workplace and they're like, wait, nobody actually talks like that?
Oh yeah. It's like showing up to a casual Friday in a three-piece suit. You're not wrong, but you're definitely standing out for the wrong reason.
That's actually perfect. So before we jump in, what's your advice for listeners? Should they try to memorize all 10 expressions we're going to cover today?
No. Actually, here's the thing. If you try to memorize all 10 at once, your brain is literally going to hit the emergency exit. Just pick one or two. Use them this week. That's it.
That's such good advice, because the goal isn't to collect expressions like Pokemon cards or something. It's to actually use them naturally, right?
Exactly. All right, so Emily, let's get the ball rolling here.
Oh, look at you already using one of the expressions. Nice.
See what I did there?
Smooth, Dennis. Very smooth.
Okay, so first expression. That's a game changer. Emily, when would you use this?
Oh, this one's everywhere. So, a game changer is something that makes a big, like a really big improvement. Not just, oh, that's nice. We're talking about something that fundamentally changes how you do things.
Right. So, imagine your team finds this tool that saves you 2 hours of reporting every week. That's not just helpful, that's a game changer.
Exactly. And I hear this all the time in tech, like this new feature is a total game changer for our workflow. It's one of those expressions that just makes you sound really professional, but also enthusiastic at the same time.
Yeah, and it's way better than saying this is very good or something boring like that.
Oh, for sure. So, Dennis, what about let's get the ball rolling? You already used it, but can you explain it for our listeners?
Yeah, so this one's super useful. It means let's begin or let's start, but it's more friendly and natural. Like you're in a meeting, everyone's quiet, nobody wants to go first, and someone just says, "All right, let's get the ball rolling."
And it's interesting because, I mean, you could just say, let's start, right? But let's get the ball rolling has this momentum to it, like you're creating movement and energy.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's more dynamic.
Okay, next one, I'm swamped. This is one of my favorites because it's so incredibly common and casual.
Oh yeah. So when you're super busy, like drowning in work, you say I'm swamped. And the visual is actually pretty perfect, right? You're underwater, you can barely breathe, you've got too much going on.
Exactly. And it's so much more natural than saying I am very busy. Like if someone asks you to do something and you're swamped, you can just say, "Oh, I'd love to help, but I'm completely swamped this week."
Right. And people totally understand that. It's not rude, it's just honest.
For sure. All right. What about can you give me a quick rundown? When would you use that one?
So this is perfect for when you miss a meeting, right? You don't want to ask someone to explain every tiny detail, but you need to know what happened. So you say, "Hey, can you give me a quick rundown?"
And rundown here means a summary, like a brief overview of the important points. It's such a professional way to ask without sounding needy or like you're asking for too much of their time.
Yeah, exactly. You're respecting their time while still getting the info you need.
Love it. Okay, Dennis. Let's talk about we are on the same page. This one's huge in business English.
Yeah. So when everyone finally understands the plan or you're all in agreement, you can say, "Great, looks like we're on the same page." It's like confirming that everyone's aligned.
Right. And it's way more natural than saying we all agree or we understand each other. There's something about same page that just sounds right?
Totally. And I use this one probably every day at work.
Same. All right. What about that rings a bell? This one's a bit different.
Okay, so imagine someone mentions a name or a project and you kind of remember it, but you're not 100% sure. You can say, that rings a bell. It's a polite way to say, I think I've heard of that before.
Yeah, and it's perfect because it's non-committal, right? You're not saying, "Yes, I definitely know that," but you're also not saying, "No idea what you're talking about." You're in the middle.
Exactly, exactly. It's like your memory is being jogged a little bit.
Ooh, good metaphor. Okay, Dennis, what's next? We've got I'll circle back, right?
Yes, this one is everywhere. It's like coffee. You can't escape it at work.
That's so true though. So circle back means you'll return to a topic later or you'll follow up. It's basically workplace English for I'll get back to you on that.
Right, right. And it's super useful when you're in a meeting and someone asks you something, but you don't have the answer right now. You just say, "Let me circle back with you after I check the details."
And it sounds so much more professional than saying, I don't know, or I'll tell you later, you know? There's something about circle back that it just feels business appropriate.
For sure, for sure. All right, what about long stories short? This one's great for cutting to the chase.
Oh, yeah. So when you don't want to explain every single detail of a story, you can say long story short and then jump to the main point. It's like a shortcut for storytelling.
Yeah, and it's really considerate too because you're acknowledging that you could tell a longer story, but you're choosing not to because you value the other person's time.
Right, right. Like long story short, the shipment was delayed, so we changed the schedule. You skip all the boring middle stuff and get straight to what matters.
Exactly. All right, next one. Let's touch base. Emily, how would you explain this one?
Okay, so touch base means to contact someone briefly to check in or connect about something. It's super common in emails and messages, especially between busy people who just need to sync up quickly.
Right, and it's more casual than saying let's schedule a formal meeting. It's like, hey, let's touch base on Friday to confirm the next steps.
Exactly, exactly. And I love that it implies brevity, you know? You're not asking for a 2-hour meeting. You just want to touch base real quick.
Yeah, it's efficient.
Okay, last one. That's the bottom line. Dennis, when would you use this?
So when you want to state the main conclusion or the most important point, you say that's the bottom line. It's like cutting through all the noise and getting to what really matters.
And it's such a strong way to wrap up an explanation or discussion. Like, we've talked about all these different options, but the bottom line is we need to make a decision by the end of the day.
Exactly. And it signals to everyone listening that you're about to say something important, so they should pay attention.
Right, right. It's like a verbal highlighter.
Ooh, I like that. A verbal highlighter. Okay, so Emily, we've gone through all 10 expressions, but I think we should dive a bit deeper into the vocabulary here. Like let's talk about the actual words and how they work grammatically.
Yeah, yeah, good idea. So, like, game changer. That's a noun, right? You could say, this is a game changer, or that tool was a real game changer for us.
Right, right. And get the ball rolling, that's a verb phrase. You're literally starting an action or a process. It's very active.
And swamped, that's an adjective. You're describing yourself as extremely busy, like, I'm swamped, or I've been swamped all week. And rundown is a noun. You're asking for a thing, a summary. Can you give me a rundown? But you could also say, give me the rundown on that meeting.
Right, right. On the same page. That's an idiom, and it's usually used with we're or are we. Like, are we on the same page about this?
Yeah, and rings a bell, that's also an idiom. You usually say it like, that rings a bell, or does that ring a bell? It's about something sounding familiar.
And circle back, that's a phrasal verb. You circle back with someone or about something, like, I'll circle back with you tomorrow.
Right, right. Long story short, that's a phrase you use to introduce your conclusion. It's almost like a transition word, you know?
Yeah, and touch base, another verb phrase. You touch base with someone or about something, like, let's touch base next week.
And finally, bottom line, that's a noun phrase. You're talking about the conclusion or the most important fact. The bottom line is, and then you state your point.
Yeah, and I think it's important for learners to notice these different word types because it helps them understand how to actually use the expressions in sentences, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Grammar matters even with casual expressions.
Okay, so Emily, let's get into some discussion questions. I think this could be really helpful for our listeners to think about.
Yeah, for sure. So, first question, why do you think learning expressions is more useful than memorizing rare vocabulary words?
Ooh, that's a good one. I mean, I think it's because expressions are what people actually use, you know? Like you could memorize the word conflagration instead of fire, but nobody's going to say conflagration in everyday conversation.
Right, right. And expressions also carry cultural context and naturalness that individual words just can't capture. Like I'm swamped sounds so much more real than I am experiencing an overwhelming workload.
Yeah, and nobody talks like a text. Okay, next question. What does game changer mean in a work context?
Well, we already covered this, but to recap, it's something that makes a significant improvement or fundamentally changes how you do business. It's not just better, it's transformative.
Right. It's about big impact, not small tweak.
Exactly. Okay, when would you use can you give me a quick rundown?
So that's when you need a summary of something, usually a meeting you missed or a project you're not fully up to speed on. And the quick part is important because it shows you're not asking for a massive explanation.
Yeah, it's respectful of the other person's time.
Yeah. Next question. What's the difference between circle back and touch base?
Oh, that's a good question. So, circle back usually means you're returning to a topic you've already discussed, like you started a conversation and you're going to finish it later. But touch base is more about checking in or connecting briefly about something that might be new.
Right, right. So circle back is revisiting and touch base is connecting.
Yeah, exactly. And finally, which expression helps you say the main conclusion clearly?
That would be the bottom line. When you want to cut through everything and get to what really matters, you say the bottom line is.
Perfect. And I love that one because it's so decisive, you know? It signals that you're about to make an important point.
All right. So, Emily, let's dive into some more open ended questions. I'm curious, which of these expressions do you hear most often in your workplace or in meeting?
Oh, I'd say I'll circle back and let's touch base are probably the top 2. I mean, they're like the bread and butter of professional communication. Every email, every meeting, someone's using one of those.
Yeah, same for me. And I'm swamped is pretty much my permanent state of being these days.
Yeah, I feel that. Okay, so for our listeners, which one do you think feels easiest to start using this week and why?
That's a great question to ask yourself. I think for most people, maybe let's get the ball rolling or a long story short because they're pretty straightforward and you can use them in lots of different situations.
Right, right. And they don't require a lot of context. You can just drop them in naturally.
Exactly. Emily, have you ever misunderstood a common English expression? Like what happened?
Oh, absolutely. When I first started learning business English, someone told me to take it with a grain of salt. And I was like, what does salt have to do with anything? I thought they were talking about actual salt.
That's amazing. Yeah, idioms can be so confusing at first.
They really can. Okay, Dennis, here's a good one for you. What expressions do people use in Korean that don't translate well into English?
Oh wow, there are so many. But one that comes to mind is this phrase that literally translates to fighting, but it means like you can do it or good luck. And if you tried to say fighting to an English speaker, they'd be very confused.
Right, right, because fighting in English sounds aggressive, not encouraging.
Exactly, exactly. And that's why learning expressions in context is so important. You can't just translate word for word.
Absolutely. Okay, last question. If you could learn 10 more expressions for your job, what situations would you want them for? Like emails, meetings, small talk, presentations?
I think I think I'd want more expressions for emails, especially polite ways to follow up without sounding pushy. That's always tricky.
Oh, that's a good one. I'd want more for small talk because that's where I always feel the most awkward. Like waiting for a meeting to start and you're just standing there trying to think of something to say.
Yeah, small talk is hard and it's so culturally specific too. What works in one country might be totally weird in another.
Exactly, exactly.
All right, so Emily, we've covered a lot today. 10 expressions, vocabulary breakdown, discussion questions. What's what's the main takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with?
I think I think the main thing is don't try to do everything at once. Pick one or two expressions, use them in real life this week and see how it feels. That's how you make these phrases truly yours.
Yeah, exactly. And remember, small, repeated use is what makes these expressions feel natural and confident. It's not about perfection, it's about practice.
Right, right. And honestly, even if you mess up, that's okay. Like the worst thing that happens is someone doesn't understand you and you rephrase. That's it.
Exactly. And if you want more practical English for real work situations, we've got a newsletter that's super helpful. Emily, you want to tell them about it?
Oh, yeah. So head over to allaboutenglishmastery.com and sign up for the All About English Mastery newsletter. You'll get more tips, more expressions, and just really practical stuff you can use right away.
Yeah, and it's free, so why not, right?
Exactly. No reason not to.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us on the English Mastery podcast today. Emily, this was fun.
Always a pleasure, Dennis. And to our listeners, good luck with your expressions. Remember, you've got this.
Yeah, keep practicing and we'll catch you next time.
See you next time.